Hello everyone, Nathaniel Gavronsky here, and I'm in Huntsville, Texas, and I'm at the final resting place of General Sam Houston. Since we've been covering so many facts about the Texas Revolution and the Republic of Texas, I can't complete it without talking about General Sam Houston. So Houston starts off life on March 2nd, 1793, in just outside of Lexington, Virginia, and he's growing up like a normal, average, Western Virginia child. His father is unfortunately dies while he is quite young, and they are hard up on money. So what his mother does is they decide to move the kids, and there's 8 of them, to move out towards Tennessee. And this is the land is cheaper. It's a little easier to make ends meet out there. So the Houston family moves from near Lexington out to we're called Maryville, Tennessee. And while in Tennessee, he finishes growing up, but not the way most boys do. See, he didn't like school. He's always been an outcast and was never really part of the in crowd or how things are normally done. So he runs off a lot. He's always out. He disappears out into the forest for days at a time, months at a time, and he finally runs into some Creek Indians, and he's like 16 years old, and they adopt him. You have the wandering spirit of a Cherokee warrior, and so he becomes fluent in their language, their culture, their traditions, their understanding. He basically is essentially a Cherokee warrior. He even gets his own Cherokee name, the Raven. He is a staunch ally of natives from this point onward. He's an American patriot, but he also understands that the natives. He sees the natives as being part of him, and they being part of, and there's a relationship here. This would kind of come into problems with his his own conscience and some of his political allies throughout the rest of his career. But when he comes back to Maryville when he's like 19, 20 years old. I mean, he's a different person. He's much more mature. Obviously, he's more rugged. He's quite the outdoorsman, and he's learned a lot from his warrior teachers. So we're going into the point where we're kind of getting into the beginnings of the War of 1812, and he is under Jackson in the South in the Red Sticks War. Now these are tribes that are actually allied with the British to attack American settlers and American citizens in the western part of the war. And it's a very, very important part of his life, because this is where he actually learns U.S. military tactics, and he becomes friends with Jackson, and he also fights in this war with David Crockett. Now, an really interesting thing about this is that he's trying to get some of the natives to fight on beside of the Americans, join the American cause, join the Americans in the War of 1812, and a lot of the Cherokees do actually join. The Red Sticks, these different tribes are not always friends with each other. They're actually warring with each other for centuries. So there's several Indian tribes that are more than willing to join the Americans on this cause. So the War of 1812 works out, and through the 1814, Jackson is actually at the Battle of Horseshoe Bend. He's badly injured 3 times, twice almost at the same time in his arm and shoulder, and he's believed to, he's just going to die. There's no way we're going to save you. I'm really, really sorry, but you're probably going to pass on. So the doctors don't even offer to help him. He survives the night beyond medical recollection. They don't believe it. Like, how are you going to survive? And he did, because he was just that tough. He survives. He becomes lieutenant for his bravery. Jackson loves the guy. Like, this guy knows how to fight. So Jackson, kind of carries on with his war, dedications that he gets from being in the military. And then after the war is over, he gets involved back into Tennessee, and he serves in the Tennessee state legislature, and then is elected to the U.S. Congress. He's actually elected in the Congress in the early 1820s, and he's actually a staunch supporter of Andrew Jackson and supports Jackson's bid, who was governor of Tennessee at the time, to become president of the United States in 24, and is equally as eager to help Jackson win in 28. And he keeps moving forward, and he actually gets elected to the governorship of Tennessee. Now, this is in 1829, and a couple of things are going. He's married, and he comes to find out his wife is not really into him. She's actually in love with someone else, and it's too hard for him to bear. He can't handle the fact that his wife's not really his wife, and he decides to resign the governorship of Tennessee, and now he moves down to Texas. He's still in good relationships with Jackson, but there's some issues, between Jackson and him on Indian questions. The Jackson wanted to remove all the Indians completely out of what was the United States and resettle them, and it was Houston who actually negotiated with the Indians. Hey, resettlement won't be so bad. This is down to going to Arkansas. This wasn't even Trail of Tears yet. They get them down into Arkansas and try to make sure they were treated well down there. Shortly after arriving to Texas, the Battle of Gonzales takes place. So he's down there in 1835, and Houston is starting to, he has some military training. A lot of people in Texas, the Texians, were former Tennesseans, so he's among allies, he's among friends. And he arrives down in Texas, and he's kind of de facto the military guy, and he is kind of set forth for trying to help, build up some forces here for this Texas Revolution that he kind of just arrives in the middle of. So a couple things after the Battle of Gonzales, which takes place, ends on October 2nd of 35, is that General de Cos of, Santa Anna's brother-in-law arrives up in Texas, and there is a battle in San Antonio and also at the Alamo that the Texians are actually successfully able to push the Mexicans out of San Antonio and out of the Alamo. So the Alamo is being defended by the Mexicans and attacked by the Texians. This leads to Santa Anna deciding he wants to get revenge on the Texians and moves up his forces to San Antonio and the Alamo, and he arrives on February 23rd of 36. This will begin the siege of the Alamo. Sam Houston at this point, he's actually trying to get the Native Americans to stay out of the war because he understands that these natives have been here for centuries, and in fact the Alamo originally was a mission to help convert them from their pagan beliefs into good Spanish Catholics. And so the place has a lot of native tribes, and they're not all on the same side. They don't all have the same philosophies. And so Houston's trying to keep them from joining the war on either side. He finds out about the Santa Anna moving up, and he starts to get people gathered up for a meeting and decide what they're going to do. And this takes place at Washington. This becomes known as Washington on the Brazos. Brazos. There's a couple different ways to pronounce this. I found out that Brazos isn't correct. It's Brazos, but you spell it Brazos. So Texians, it's Brazos. But he's there, and he's trying to get people gathered up. He's there in December 35, just as General de Cos has been removed and sent back to Mexico. He knows that Santa Anna is coming. February 27 comes, and he's still trying to get an army together. He was able to get help with Burnet, which is another leader of the Texas Revolution, to get a convention to take place in Washington to decide what to do. This is a kind of a colonial government. And they arrive there. There's 59 delegates, and they have a convention. And the convention starts on March 1st. Santa Anna is already sieging the Alamo at this point. On the 2nd of March, which is Sam Houston's birthday, Texas declares its independence. And from there, the Alamo was lost on the March 6th. Sam Houston is elected the commander-in-chief of the Texas forces, and he is trying to go and defend the Alamo, but he knows he's too late. But when he gets halfway there, and Washington is only today in driving is only a 2-hour drive really, and this is kind of important time in this whole process. And he's trying to get troops together. So Gonzales So the people at Gonzales, they are actually burned down their entire town in what they call the runaway scrape. They're trying to get away from Santa Ana at the Alamo Falls. Goliad is completely wiped out. The entire army is killed there, and so now Houston's on the run. Houston's trying to figure out what he's going to do. He only has like around 900 men. He can't put on a full fight against a European-style trained military. So he's trying to find a way to best defend Texas and to not die. So the runaway scrape, he gets lucky. He finds out that Santa Anna is heading towards Harrisburg because his army just takes the right turn at the right time, and they actually capture a Mexican soldier, find out where he's going, and they go to cut him off. They go to cut Santa Anna off. The way they do this is they know that Santa Anna's going to have to cross the San Jacinto River at a place called Lynch's Ferry. And this is down by the Buffalo Bayou around Harrisburg, which was the capital at this exact moment, because when Santa Anna was moving to Washington, the government moved to Jane Harris's house in Harrisburg, which became the capital, before fleeing to Galveston as the Mexican army was advancing. And so now you have Sam Houston knowing where Santa Anna's going. He cuts him off. He gets there on the 20th of April, a couple of hours before Santa Anna does, and he gets his camp behind some trees, and he's actually really well protected, and he's in a good spot. Santa Anna arrives. He kind of notices the Texians there, but he sets up his camp about a mile away, trying to figure out, what is he going to do. Now, he actually has a smaller force at this time. He broke his forces on part to take all these towns. So now he's in a predicament, but he knows he's got his brother-in-law on the way with reinforcements, along with other reinforcements in the way, and the greater Mexican army is not that far away at all. But so when he gets his reinforcements, Santa Anna, they're up all night trying to prepare for an attack in the morning, because on the 20th, there are a couple different skirmishes against Houston's orders. And the Mexicans are trying to, preparing for the morning attack. They were able to fend off the two attacks by the Texian forces that were done against Houston's orders with success, but he knows that this battle is going to come on the 21st. So his reinforcements come in. They're up all night trying to build all this stuff. 9 o'clock comes the morning, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, noon, no battle. The Texians aren't advancing because Houston knows that he only has really one battle. He has one shot to make this work, and then it's all over. They don't win. Well, he sends a guy by the name of Deaf Smith to go blow up a bridge called Vince's Bridge behind the Mexican forces, so the Mexicans have no way to retreat. And then he waits for the Mexicans to stand down. The Mexican army stands down. They're taking their lunch. They're eating. They're sleeping for the first time in 2 days. That's when Houston makes his move. Houston comes in around 4 p.m. on the 21st. The Battle of San Jacinto lasts 18 minutes. 18 minutes, and it's over. Any semblance of a battle is over in 18 minutes. However, the Texians continue to kill the Mexicans for hours and hours and hours into the day as they're trying to flee. The Mexicans say, me no Alamo, and it didn't work. The Texans were just eliminating her. Now, Houston was against this. Houston was trying to get the killing to stop because the Mexicans have surrendered. Santa Anna tried to flee. His brother-in-law tried to leave, but because that bridge was out, they had nowhere to go. They were captured both the next day, and now Houston had his bargaining chip with the Mexican government. He makes Santa Anna agree to leave Texas along with his Mexican forces and to give Texas its independence. Now, the Treaty of Velasco is never ratified by the Mexican government, but it de facto gives Texas its independence. Now, for the next, this is the point where the Republic of Texas is created. And the Republic of Texas basically takes its form, in this time it convenes in Houston, in the capital, May of 1937. It is becoming its own country. Sam Houston is the first president. Now, the way the Constitution of Texas works is that you can't serve 2 consecutive terms. So the president, once his presidency was over, he had to step down and his vice president took over it. Now, the thing is that Houston wanted to have good relationships with the native tribes. He wanted to have good relationships with the United States. He wanted to have good relationships with Mexico as well. I mean, the only reason why Mexico rebelled was because Santa Anna got rid of the Constitution of 24. If it wasn't for that, Texas probably never would have rebelled. And in fact, that 90% of Mexico rebelled when the 24 Constitution was removed. And Santa Anna is clearly in the wrong here. So he's president of the republic. He's trying to build better relationships. He knows that the republic is not that strong. It's heavily in debt, and don't forget, Texas at this time is much smaller than what we think of as today. I mean, it was, Austin was pretty much where Austin is today. Is pretty much the boundary. San Antonio wasn't really that far off, and. When Houston would have to, step down for the presidency, he would run for the Republic of Texas House of Representatives, while his, former vice president was then president, and he thought it was completely destroying all of Texas and everything that was Texas was doing. Houston couldn't wait to become president of Texas again, and he becomes president of Texas again in 2 years, and he actually tries to submit some of his reforms. I mean, he really, the previous president was absolutely horrible, and Texians kind of realized this. They needed to make changes. He was still trying to lobby and negotiate with the United States, but Jackson's not having it. Jackson is worried politically about attempting to expand into the South because of expanding a difference between North and South with the slave trade. Houston, who owns slaves, also is leery about having a large expansion of slavery. He owns them, but he's not a real big fan of supporting the institution. He even tries to actually outlaw it in Texas as a republic. But it's unsuccessful. He does attempt several times to remove slavery from Texas prior to the Civil War and prior to annexation by the United States. So his term actually ends as president before they're able to become annexed by the United States. But during this time, the San Antonio was attacked several more times by the Mexican army. This is where the Alamo's at. And so he actually moves the government back to Washington on the Brazos, and he's trying to actually, get this annexation done. And so they're actually meeting in 45, and they have an agreement with the U.S. Congress and with the Texian Congress to be annexed. And they agree to move the capital back to Austin after annexation until 1850, when they're going to do a statewide vote on it. But the United States Congress initially holds out. There was other things they were worried about, and then. But this time, Tyler becomes president of the United States, and he is a man with no party to nominate him for a second term. So after the election with James K. Polk, which was, the idea of annexing Texas was a huge aspect of that election, and that's how Polk even became the nominee, and that's, the president-elect was his support for the annexation of Texas against Van Buren, and Jackson, who wanted to annex Texas but didn't have the political will to do it at the time. Time was good, so Tyler went ahead and sent a messenger to Texas. Hey, we got this agreement, let's do it. So before Polk comes in, Texas is meeting, and they ratify with the U.S. Congress's rules. The U.S. Congress backs it. They agreed to it. And on February 19th, Texas becomes a state, and the Republic of Texas, notable by the fourth president of the Republic of Texas, his name is Jones. He says, very, very, sad and sorry for him. On February 19th in Austin, giving the reins of the government to the state of Texas. He said the Republic of Texas is no more. Houston's here for this. Houston becomes the first U.S. senator from Texas. He serves for 2 terms. He has eyes on becoming president one day, but he's here. He is trying to lobby to improve Texas, improve relationships with the United States as the state, and he's doing really well. The Texas legislature at this time elects the U.S. senators. It's not publicly voted. That doesn't happen until the 20th century. So the legislature continues to elect Sam Houston. Sam Houston, though, he goes back to the Democrats because that's what he was originally under with Jackson. And he's starting to have some differences with them because he supports the Compromise of 1850. And then you have the development of the Kansas-Nebraska Act, which he vehemently opposes. He doesn't like this idea because he doesn't really want to see the expansion of slavery. I mean, he really doesn't. It's not really what he wants. So he opposes it. And it's very clear at this point that he's not going to continue being the U.S. senator. from Texas. He tries to run, tried different campaigns. He actually initially tries to join the Know Nothing Party, which is kind of an anti-Catholic, anti-immigrant party, but was actually one of the most pro-Native American tribes in you could choose from. So that was important. He actually, like I said, his allegiance and support for Native Americans was huge for him, and that's the reason why he kind of joined the Know Nothings. And the conventions for the Know Nothings in Texas both took place in Washington on the Brazos, but he failed to get their nomination for president, and he wasn't, a couple of times it wasn't making any headway. So he decides, instead to, run for governor of Texas, which is a statewide position. He's able to win this position, and and just before the Civil War, and he's adamantly against secession. He doesn't want. He doesn't want the secession. He doesn't want Texas to leave the Union. Something that he was very adamant about, getting Texas into the Union. He didn't want to see Texas removed. He was very against it. However, when Texas decided to secede, they booted him out. Here was the guy who basically defended Texas, made Texas, the ability to be Texas, and he's booted out of office because he wasn't going to support the Confederacy. Now, he knew that Texas was going to secede, but what he wanted to do, what he attempted to do, was, instead of becoming part of the Confederate States of America, he actually tried to get the rebirth of the Republic of Texas. So that was his goal, instead of being part of the Confederate States. It wasn't successful. He leaves office in '61 and moves up to Huntsville. He retires. He basically stays in his home. He is out of politics. He doesn't really get involved in anything. And on July 26th of 1863, he dies here as a Confederate citizen. He has a really interesting life. He was born an American. He became most well known and the leader of a foreign nation, the Republic of Texas, and then dies a Confederate citizen, a country he'd never wanted to be a part of. I think that's, he has a very interesting, chain of events. A couple of notable things about Houston is, one, he is the only person to be the governor of two separate U.S. states, both Tennessee and Texas. He was the only U.S. senator to at one time be the leader of a foreign country, which he was when he was, president of the Republic of Texas. He was the leader of a foreign nation. When Jackson recognized the Republic of Texas, that it recognized him as a foreign nation from Mexico. And if he would have been able to become president of the United States, don't forget, he was initially born in Virginia. He would have been the only president of the United States to have also been a president of a foreign nation, even though that nation was now part of the United States. So, he had a really great history, and I know, a lot of people don't realize, how much, he might have been a slave owner, but he felt at the end, at the institution, something needed to be changed, and he did seek to try to remove it. His love life was absolutely horrible. He had very little success in marriage. His political life was, overshadowed, was good, as far as the positions he held, but he ended up becoming ostracized from his peers because of his positions, which were his convictions were above that of party. They were of what would be best, what he believed for Texas and for the country as a whole. And I think he was probably right on both of those aspects. This was a guy who had a conscience. He knew a good compass of right and wrong. And I think that he's someone that we should take more pride in as a person. He didn't actually found the city of Houston. It was named for him by the Allen brothers. In fact, he didn't even like the town because it smelled bad, and that he didn't want to have the capital there because it was too expensive. He kept instead of going to Houston, he went back to Washington. But he really didn't seek power for power's sake. That really wasn't what he was doing. He actually had some ideas and things that he wanted to accomplish, and I think he had the right intentions. He wanted to do the right things, and he was moving towards those goals. So he might have died a Confederate citizen, but his staunch opposition from seceding from the United States, his Union positions on staying in the Union, and his distaste for the institution of slavery, I think, are really important. And I think that you got to tell the whole story. And I think he was proud of. I think he loved Texas. He didn't agree with seceding, but if push came to shove, I think he would have picked up arms to defend Texas if the war actually got this far. But he was a man of his time. He did great. He if it wasn't for Texas, if Texas wouldn't have become part of the Union, there's who knows what the history of this country would have been. Texas has been a vital aspect of every country it's been a part of, from France to Spain to Mexico to its own republic, an instrumental part of the Confederacy, and now it's a very important part of the United States, with NASA being here, the tech industries that are here, the research and medical industries that are here, technology. The economic boom of Texas. Texas didn't feel the Great Depression like the rest of the country did because of its innovations, its industries, its ports. Texas, within Houston, has international tonnage by water is the largest. It's second in overall tonnage. There's so many the cranes and the development and building buildings in the cities from all over Texas. Shows great signs of economic improvement and economic development and the economic growth of the state of Texas. That's all wouldn't have been possible without Sam Houston, a young boy who loved adventure and loved the outdoors and had a knack for learning. He was a lawyer even for a short period of time. He tried to make ends meet. In Tennessee, he a very fascinating guy, and I hope more people take a chance to learn more about Sam Houston. My name is Nathaniel Gavronsky, here in Huntsville, Texas. Please like, subscribe, and share these videos. Stay healthy, stay wealthy, and always stay wise, Texas.